A lot of stories. I'm going to share a couple of stories as we go, talk about from a parent point of view. But really, I think the most important, the most interesting thing for those people is how do you stay safe? And better yet, how many of us try to keep, I know we have a lot of kiddos in here, but how many of us try to keep the news kind of reality for our kids as long as we possibly can? Right? There's something to be said for a little lost minutes, right? We don't want to introduce concepts too soon or early. We don't for our kids. I have 3 of my own. If I could just pause them at a certain age, that'd be amazing, right? But we can't. Right? They just keep growing on us and keep evolving and keep learning. One thing that we see a lot, and a challenge not only to parents, but also the teachers that we have seen over the years is how do you talk to either your own kids or if you're a teacher, students, about scary things, right? And what we've seen in the years of doing this is that kids are more aware of the world than ever before. So this quote, Mommy, what would happen if a stranger got into my school, right? When you are 4 years old, how many of us remember being 4 years old? A couple of you there are like 5 or 6. I remember being 4, right? The world to a 4-year-old is dramatically different than the world to us. As adults, we can delineate, we understand, we know the difference between certain things. But the kids, strangers are the all-sweeping, all-encompassing bad person, right? They don't blame between robbers and burglars and all these different people, right? All these quote-unquote bad people, right? They just strangers are unsafe. And we start to see the manifestation of kids starting to worry about safety and things by verbiage like this. And this comes from one of our industry partners at Austin, Texas. But you hear more and more, especially in the in preschool and the kinders, they're starting to understand the world is a little weird and wonky, right? As they get older, their questions don't necessarily get a lot better. They get mature, right? So this is from Baltimore, Maryland, and this teacher's an English teacher, and she gives this free response writing prompt every year to her class. Right? She's a modern day prompt creator, a hero of the soul. Now, this is not one of our classrooms, so this is not, you see, they're credit in it or they caught in it, right? They did not have any research in anything. This is not one of our schools. This comes from a family friend of ours. And she goes, it's interesting. When you let them talk about whatever they think are problems in the world, I get more and more and more responses like this. This is an actual student, the turn into the assignment. School violence and adventure in the school system. As they're reaching that middle school age, they're starting to see more of the youth, talking to friends, they have access to devices a little bit more. They're getting much trying to show for them. We're seeing that they're a little more aware of them. And as you get even older, in high school, this is what we see. This quote's from a high school junior. And talking to this high school junior, she goes, look, I get it. We've never had a problem on our school campus. We've never had an act of violence on our school campus. We've been on lockdown 4 times this year alone for things that are going on, there's police activity in the neighborhood, maybe someone's chasing somebody, there's a threat or something like that. But she's like, for me, this time she was 16 years old, she's like, I get turned on the news. It looks like me. Schools that look like ours. And they are having these problems. And really, up until this point, there's not been a lot of really good ways to address this, not only with our students, regardless of the age, but also sometimes, well, our teachers. Because if you're going to think about things that have been hurting people in school, right? Things that hurt students, that hurt teachers, those kind of things. We had to go back in time. Now, just over 10 years ago, as we were developing this program, we looked back in time. We said, okay, what other things have challenged the safety of our kids in schools? The last thing we found that truly challenged the safety in schools was fire. Now, does anyone know the last time a student or teacher was hurt or were seriously injured by fire in school? Yeah, it's been a long time. In fact, it's been so long and none of us were probably even alive when this happened. 1958 was the last time you had any students that were hurt and killed during school hours. 92 kiddos that day, which, I think by English standards, especially today's standards, that's something that should never happen. And when we look at, okay, well, what has it been that since 1958, we have not had this problem in schools. We have got rid of this problem in schools. There was more than just one thing, right? If you think about what has changed in the classroom, what has changed in buildings. We can look around this room right now. You have an exit sign. Those doors open outwards. Some rooms, sometimes they have the fire sprinklers in it. This room has got fire alarms and fire sensors in it, right? We have done a lot of different things to help protect our kids in school from what used to be the top of concern, the top of threat. Now you have to put yourself in the shoes of a 1958 teacher. Right? Horrible news, this is happening. The teacher drives to their school the next day. They didn't see a construction vehicle outside because now they're installing fire hoses in their school. They're putting fire extinguishers in. This teacher's looking at this, well, wait a minute, you're putting in fire hoses. Their principal tells them, guess what? Every single month we're going to do a drill now. Every single month we're going to interrupt your class. We're going to sound an alarm. And you have to practice every single month leaving your classroom. It wasn't just one thing. We did a lot, but when that teacher's thinking about it, like, whoa. I didn't become a teacher to be a firefighter. I became a teacher to teach. Yes, of course I want to keep kids safe, but if I wanted to be a firefighter, I would have been a firefighter. I wouldn't have gone into education. It's funny how times have changed, but the issues not so much. Because now, we're in an era when you're looking at all the things that happen in the news and all these different things, teachers are now also tasked still with keeping their kids safe, from fire, but now they're also tasked with keeping their kids safe from people who may want to do that. Many teachers over the years have said, look, I didn't become a teacher to become a police officer. I didn't become a teacher to become a security guard. I became a teacher to teach. And we fully understand that. And really, when we looked at the development of the H.E.R.O program, we wanted to keep in mind and honor the fact that we understand that teachers and school principals and vice principals and everyone did not sign up for this job, right? When you think about school safety, there's kind of three pillars. So anything that you see on television, anything that you see, anything that you read, I want you to keep in mind there's three pillars of school safety. The first pillar, and there's no really order, but I'll just say first, the one on the left. That physical pillar is what we hear and see a lot. That's things like putting door locks in, putting fencing around schools. Even in the school here, the gates, the sensors, you have to buzz in before you get in to check in to visit, right? There's always things physically that we have done to help prepare and secure our school to keep our kids safe. The thing that not a lot of folks talk about is the far right. We talk about school culture, right? That's the relationship between your kiddos and their teacher. That's the relationship between you and their teachers, right? The school climate, what's going on, how connected are we with everything, right? And by the fact that we have a nearly full room tonight tells me that you are very engaged and connected, and that there's this whole culture that is connected. That yes, we are concerned about a lot of things. We want our kids to be well, but we also want them to be safe. And so usually if you talk about and you watch anything, you usually see those two sides of school safety. Well, that thing in the middle, right, that knowledge component of like, okay, we can buy a bunch of things, we can solve those things, that's good, that's a part. We're working together as a community, and that's also a part. But what should we be talking about? How should we be talking about? What's actually the safe things to do? What are unsafe things to do? That's where we say the H.E.R.O program and the skills and all the teachers have all learned that your kids and the students learn along the way, build that gap of knowledge to create an incredibly safe campus. And by the way, create an incredibly safe environment for you and your family, no matter where you go. And you're kind of share a little bit about what that means. Because over the past 20 plus years, I'm going to share my background here in just a second, but over the last 20 some odd years, when we think about school safety in general, there's been kind of three options. One option has been the school principal, the vice principal, someone has got to be in charge of running drills. And usually that someone is not an expert in safety and security. And kind of nor should they be, right? So they're not certificated in school safety, right? That's not something that is usually a thing. So we do what we can to try to check the box to try to keep our kids safe. Maybe we don't necessarily know we're doing the best thing. We're doing the best that we can. Local law enforcement partners. So we partner with our law enforcement to come in and help us either run our drill or do training for teachers and those things. And while they are a fantastic, knowledgeable resource, they're not always the most user-friendly. They're always not the most in tune on how to teach other adults, no matter how to engage with kids in very specific, frankly, scary topics. We're somewhere in the middle, right? So that last image is current and retired law enforcement military folks training the way that law enforcement and military trains to a population of students and teachers that are not used to receiving information that way. That's not the way that we learn. If we do any sort of research, we can see stories like this. Are we doing more harm than good? If we think about in the worst sense of in the word active shooter, right? Active aggressive, those types of things. We think in the worst possible sense, the likelihood of that happening versus how much we might be maybe harming or scaring our kids, is it working? And there's been a lot of research essentially saying that we're traumatizing a generation over something that, relatively speaking, probably won't happen. And statistically speaking, that's pretty true. And I would say to agree that, yes, over the last 20 years, we have not been doing a good job of this. We have not done a good job. I say we in education, in law enforcement, as first responders, we have not done a very good job of this. And so the design and the thought process and the way in which we went about the H.E.R.O program set out to change that problem. So I mentioned my name down. I've been doing this for about 2 years. Started doing this, and what informed this is as a police officer for 20 years. I was on our active shooter team. I have been to school shootings. I have had to make those choices. I trained in this topic across the country for nearly 15 years after Columbine happened. Remember that. I spent a lot of time studying and teaching about very bad things. The problem was I had no skill set to do that. And so I would come and train a whole nice group of room like yourselves and teachers, all kinds of people, the same way we would train in the military, the same way we would train in law enforcement, which is not good for most people because it's stress inoculation. We're going to knock stuff over, make loud sounds, have all kinds of things, right? That's not the way people learn. And 2015, I was in a school very similar to this. I was in downtown Los Angeles, teaching a school, and it was full. I had a room about this size full of teachers. And we did everything we knew at the time that we thought was good. Now, in hindsight, we knew it was all wrong. We shot teachers with Nerf guns. We shot them with silly string. We showed them scary police videos. We showed them all kinds of traumatizing things. And I did this 4-hour training. I had a 3rd grade teacher in the back of the room raising her hand. Now, I appreciate your training. I understand your training. But I cannot tell my 3rd graders anything you just told me. I cannot tell them any of that. So what do you suggest I do? How can I talk to them about this? Because it's going to be Murphy's Law. We pick up or drop off, at lunch, at recess, on the way to school, substitute teacher. There's going to be a field trip. There's going to be a reason that we won't be in our classroom to practice what we have been practicing, lockdown, right? Shut the door, lock the door, turn off the lights, get all those things. There are going to be times I'm not there, and I don't want to be the only one who knows what to do. I looked right at her. I said, I have no answer for you. I had not even thought about that concept. And look what happened. I had a 5th grade teacher ask me the same thing a couple weeks later. I told you it was cool. And I had another teacher, and another teacher. I started getting asked this question quite a bit. So fast forward about 6 months. I'm working as a full-time police officer. I'm on our active shooter team. I look like I'm out of the movies. I got all the gear, the helmets, and the guns. I got all the stuff. Sure enough, 11:45 in the morning, call comes out. Potential shooting in progress at a middle school. The only thing about this was that I was parked right across the street. I just couldn't see the school from the parking lot I was parked in. So I get there immediately. I get out before the radio transmission is over. I'm out of the car with my rifle, and I'm heading to the school to go handle business. We're going to go find some bad people. By the time I got into the school, it was at lunch. There were 700 students at that school that day. All their teachers were in the teacher's lounge having lunch. There was 2 or 3 duty supervisors that were out and making sure everyone was doing their supposed to. But all their classrooms were locked because their teachers were in the lounge. They had never taught or practiced what to do if they were not in their classroom. So you can imagine the chaos that I ran into with 700 7th and 8th graders who did not know what to do, and a very real threat to them. And as I was handling and going through and trying to deal with this situation, that voice of that third grade teacher popped in my head. Well, how should we have talked to these kids? How should we have let them know what to do, how to stay safe no matter where they were? On top of everything else, I was like the clearest voice in my head of all of the chaos. I started realizing maybe we were talking to the wrong audience. And so very shortly thereafter, I think 2015, early 2016, I talked to a lot of other officers that were on our team, other experts I knew in this world for the safety part, right? Like how do you stay safe, right? I knew that, a lot of folks knew that. We knew the safe part, but that's all we knew. I found a team of teachers and educators, and principals, and superintendents, special education teachers, school psychologists. We had a team of experts that came together and said, how do we stay safe? How can we teach kids to stay safe? And better yet, how can we do it in a way that isn't scary? This is what's called trauma-informed, which is a big term now, it was not 9 to 10 years ago. How can we do this in a way that makes sense? That way, if you're a school and something happens, all the kids know what to do. You don't have to have the teacher right there. Kids make good decisions on their own. And better yet, what we really found out was that kids make really good decisions out there when they're not at school or not on their way home. When you guys are at dinner on a Friday night, you go to the movies, or kids that play sports or the sporting event. What we have found is that kids took these skills and actually used them in real life, not at their school at all. And once we started figuring that out, they were like, how young and how old should we be? So this had evolved, I said, of course, now nearly a decade. And understanding that safety really starts with just understanding how to be safe, and better yet, I want to feel safe and I want to be safe. So let's talk about how that works. Now, let me back up just for 1 second. The images you see here run the age span of what we talk about. So this is from about kindergarten all the way through high school, right? High safe for a number of times. Those are the 4 very simple principles to remember to stay safe for virtually almost anyone. For little ones, we talk about TKers. And even younger, little preschool, the TKers in early kindergarten. Hero becomes how to escape, run, and obey, right away. I'm going to talk about this in just a little bit, but this concept is I want the little ones, before the tears and the fears set in, to listen to you as their parent, or their safe and trusted adult, their teacher, right? Maybe their babysitter, maybe their aunt or uncle, their grandparents, where they happen to be. That as soon as they hear this emergency word, they stop, they look, and they listen to you, or that trusted adult, on what to do safely before bad things start to happen, no matter what it may be. And I have stories from parents that have used this with their little ones. I have teacher stories. I'll share a couple of those as we go, but if we think about the core concept of being safe, the concept of the H.E.R.O program, and quote unquote being hero, is really what happens when bad things happen. Doesn't matter what it is. You get afraid, you get scared, something's not quite right. Our natural reaction is either to freeze or stop, to run away from whatever it is, or to engage that thing. So we talk about that fight, flight, and freeze response. You hear it quite a bit. For the middle schoolers, try to learn this in biology right on the side. What we want to do is your body's going to do one of those things. Let's give it tools, no matter what it does. Let's give it really good tools to understand how to actually be a little bit safer when that happens. Your body's going to do it anyhow. Let's empower you with some very simple, easy things to do whenever you happen to feel that. So if you've been following the journey here so far, there's probably some questions that are already formed in your head as parents. I'm going to guess at least one of these is formed somewhere, like, oh my gosh, what about this, what about that, how do they talk about this, what do they do? So, let's start with the most obvious, since we're talking about kind of violent events. Do we say things like that? Do we have images like that? Are there shooters in there? Are people and things getting hurt in there? No. Nowhere, anywhere in the program, do we use any of the terms, verbiage, or imaging of firearms, or weapons, or guns, or explosions, or death, or maiming, or shooting, or bullets. Knives, sword, and there's none of that. None of that is in there. Zero. Which you're probably now asking, well, then how do we talk about it? I'll come back to it. Do we get political? What's our stance on guns? What's our stance on this? What's our stance on that? We have one very easy to understand political stance. And that is, the world is somewhat of a weird and dangerous place. Has been for a long time, will probably continue to be. And we just want to make you safer. It doesn't really matter to me how people try to hurt folks. It doesn't matter to me. All I know is there's hurtful people in the world, And I want to try to keep you and your kids safe from those hurtful people as best as I can. We do that through knowledge. Which then leads into, well, how do we talk about these things? People who hurt, people who help. And that's where the conversation starts. Who are helpful people in the world? Who are hurtful people in the world? Well, there's so many helpful people, kids are hurtful people. That's all right. We know how to stay safe from hurtful people. Here's how we learn. Here's our special superpowers, our escape from superpowers, how to stay safe from maybe people that want to try to hurt us. Those are the types of ways that we work through it. Let's see here. Is it scary? Is it create more trauma? It's a good question. All of the stories, so from our little ones all the way through our 5th graders, and even when we get into some of the stories from middle school, all of our stories, preschool through 5th grade, we have superhero stories. The stories are set in Metro City Hero School, where kids, young superheroes, are learning from their real-life superhero teachers. And how to escape and overcome thought process, strategies are their superpowers. Now, if your kids watch Marvel, Superman, Avenger, all of those superhero type stories, it's a very similar plot line, very similar thing. Right? Everything's great. You gotta have a villain. Our villains are Evil Eye, Vader. The villains try to come and destroy Hero School, but it's okay. Our high escape runner becomes superpowers, throw those villains, and they save the day. Very similar plots, very similar stories, very similar characters. When you look at our characters, it's a story that kids read. As you get to middle school, they're still stories, but now they're more allegorical stories. They're stories about things that connect to how do people hide from certain businesses, how do they escape from certain things, how do they go through certain things, based a little more on history than it is anything else. They work through those concepts, problem-based. We give them some challenges. Let's find some solutions. How do we work through these things? So it changes by grade level and how they're engaging with the content. Over the years of doing this, we've been asking questions. Does this inspire, right? Are kids even more scared than before? They're no more scared than they're scared with any of their other hero stories. And I would tell you, like I said, we're coming up on about 1 million kids in the program from beginning to end. And to my knowledge, there have been less than 3 kids that ever told their parents that they were scared about something. And usually we hear about the kids and the parents that are like, I don't know about this. 3 and now 2 years. And the 3, if you're asked, are things that are very specific. Kids that have a certain fear due to something that has happened. And they learn there's something that like brings back kind of a memory specific to that kid. Which we can then address and work with teachers or as parents about there's a specific fear about something. So what we really landed on is a way in which to broadly talk about safety with kids. So, what does that program look like in the school? Well, all the teachers have been through a 2-hour professional development of actually what your program is, how do you use it, and how do you teach it. So they've been well prepared up to this point in understanding for them how it works and also how it works in the classroom. Right? We have ongoing professional support from us as kids, asking questions, updating content, all the things to prepare them, not only themselves, but also the teacher and also how to keep the students safe. So the teachers have been well prepared to get When I talk about the in-classroom stuff, those teachers have 5 different lessons. Those 5 lessons coordinate to the paper in front of you. On the paper in front of you, if you have elementary school kiddos, you see hide, escape, run, overcome it all together. That reflects each one of the lessons in the program. So when the kiddos come home from their hide lesson, they're actually taught or instructed to go home and talk to you, everyone they live with, about their newfound skill. What does hiding mean to them? What about this? How do we escape from this? And so these questions are designed to carry the conversation, which they had here, home to you. Because I have now over a dozen stories of kids and families using their hero concepts, and that'll be now to date, to be exact, 14. 13 of 14 did not happen at school. 13 of the 14 happened with their parents, somewhere not at school. And so we're discovering more and more that the family and the parents are some of the most important people that also know what's happening. Because the first couple of stories, the kids knew exactly what to do, and the parents did not. And so really getting parents more and driving more into parent content is what we're doing over the next couple of years to support you. How do you keep your kiddos safe when they're even not? We built. Thank you. There we go. So we built it on a few things, right? We used a bunch of academic stuff, but one of the main things we built it on a power theory, which in short just really means everything's got a winning outcome, with positive language, and a way in which it feels like anyone and everyone can use it. That's really what it's designed to be. We built it on English language arts standards, which means that for the teacher side of the house, we're not taking away instructional time from something else. It's actually supplementing their ELA time, structured in the concepts of safety. So, the other thing that's included is what we call our student accessibility guide, which means that it's adaptations and modifications for all ability learners and all ability students. So sight, sound, functional access, temporary, permanent disability, kiddos, or sometimes even our teachers who roll their ankles, are in a boot, maybe in crutches for a little bit, adaptations to the program to stay safe and really meet the student or the teacher kind of where they are in their abilities. So we talk about the lessons and the ability to teach it. I mentioned for all of our elementary schools, it's all narrative and story-based. As they get older in middle school, it comes with more problem-based, more group work-based, those types of things. Everything's age-specific, so you see our range from our K-3 stories all the way to our middle school kind of graphic novelish type stories. Everything's built for the grade level, so that program ages up or ages down, based upon where the kiddos are in their journey. So I think the same thing year after year, over and over. Concepts, yes, stories and pictures, narratives and lessons are all different year after year after. So let's see what this looks like. The next question to parents, okay, this sounds great, but what does it really look like? So let's talk about those little ones. TK, kinder, what we call our pre-K programming, because it's a real small. The things we talk about, right? Parents and teachers are the ones that I trust and I always listen without arguing with us. Who do we listen to? Who's our safe adult that we listen to when we hear this? Hiding in the dark. What we know for our younger grades is usually the most traumatizing thing is actually not the subject of the topic or anything else, it's when the lights go off. It's different fears that creep in. We address those, right? We talk about how, what to do, who to listen to, all those different types of things that these young ones. As we get a little bit older into our K3, this changes the story a little bit. Now I have a little bit older animation. Right? The story changes a little bit. We talk about H.E.R.O school and learning how to be superheroes with their teachers. These are special superpowers. The same type of thing also happens as you get a little bit older. In the 4th and 5th grade, it's a little more of a chapter built with some pictures. They're talking through more really plot development and more character development, get a little deeper, again, just like other books at that age that they're reading. And as we get into middle school, and part of this also translates into our high school programming, now it's more graphic novel. Now we're really problem-based. We're working through scenarios. We're thinking about things, but all couched in a way that is different types of safety. We stay safe in different types of things. The thing about the program is that it's not just reading books. It's not just talking about something. We also practice. We have an exercise and activities that the kiddos practice while they're in the classroom. We've gamified a lot of it to have competition, these different types of things. So they're learning in a way, they're connecting, they're hearing, they're seeing, they're talking, they're reading. We're in multiple learning areas for them to connect all and process how best that they learn. All of this feeds ultimately into a drill guide, so that way we can run really appropriate and meaningful drills that aren't scary, that don't have an issue where kids are afraid because it's a surprise, it's all these different things. We essentially handhold and created the way in which to practice, and it feels like it's part of the program, it feels like it's part of the lessons, it feels just like another part of their learning experience. It does not have to be something that's big, it's something that has to be scary. And so from a school point of view, this entire package try to understand that works together. What you have in front of you, like I said, is the parent companion guide. During this, we have a lot of other resources, both in English and in Spanish, on our website, and our families and resources. How do you talk to kids about safety? How do you talk to them about fear? How do you talk to them about things they're going to use? How to. We have a lot of support for parents, because again, unless we had a career or a job or grew up or whatever it is, thinking about safety, most of us are a little unsure. And usually as a parent, one of your biggest fears is how do you keep your kids safe. If you don't have that knowledge, it compounds that. And so we provide a lot of resources for parents in addition to. In the fall, this also, all of the H.E.R.O stuff goes online to parents. There's a parent version with parent training, so you can get it both for yourself and carry it into the home as well. So how does this work, guys? And I've kind of been talking about things that have happened before, right? So as I mentioned, we got this idea in about late 15 or 16. We spent about 18 months in development, and we started our first K-8 program in 2017-18 school year. There's 20,000 students across Southern California, LA County, Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, and parts of San Diego County. During that time, we studied it. We had researchers in class, which we did all the academic stuff along the way. We then went into high school the year after that, and then we backed up and went into our younger preschool in the year 2020, which, if you remember, 2020, we had a little hiccup. That's why there's only about 200 preschoolers in that particular one, because we had a little problem trying to get the program into schools, then all the schools were closed. We spent an additional 2 years after that in a soft launch to continue to study it until we released that. Anyhow, a lot of numbers. We actually had school shooting during the original K-8 pilot, which is a whole other story, but long story short, what we saw, it didn't matter what grade they were in, it didn't matter how old they were, we saw two things in every single window that really popped out in all the research. Before I share that, I'd like to share some comments from the parents. This is a comment from another parent. And I think this was a parent that was somewhat skeptical of the program to begin with. She reached out after the fact and she said, two things happened. Number one, your stories are my son's favorite stories. You want to keep what you're reading out and want to share them with me. Because the second thing is that all of a sudden it took this weird fear and this weird anxiety that I had around talking to my kiddo about it, because he led the conversation with me. It was very easy to listen to him talk about things, what makes him feel safe, how to stay safe, and how to stay safe with my family. And so this, I think, echoes a lot of feelings. I'm the first one to tell you that I wish this program didn't have to exist, because we didn't have people in the world that were trying to hurt us for any other reason. I wish that I did not have this program to run. I wish I could do something else. And I think the agreement is that it's scary, but we're thankful that we at least have a way to talk about it in a way that makes sense. And she echoes a lot of parents that I talked to had their kids go through the program. Like, I wish they didn't have to do it. I wish we didn't do it. I understand why. I think we at least have a way to combat it. So echoing that, what we saw is that student anxiety went down. This was from 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds. And what we saw quite a bit is when you gave the kids really simple, easy things to do, all of a sudden it wasn't very scary. What we saw quite a bit was quotes from parents like this. It changed their child's thought process on the conversation of safety, on their anxiety around going through a drill, on their anxiety around what's happening, especially some older kids. This particular parent said that her daughter was incredibly scared to go to school. This was after a nationally televised school violence incident. And their school had had a program for a couple of years. And the principal had made the decision, let's redo the program, because a lot of kids were scared because a lot of them had seen it. And after redoing the program again, kind of refreshing it and talking through it, a lot of kids were like, oh, that's right, we had these very simple skills. So this particular parent said, when they were driving to school one day, she noticed that her daughter was quite as anxious. She said, what makes it anxious? Well, pretty simple, Mom. I just keep her on her gun. Nothing's probably going to happen with the does. I just keep her on her gun. Not a big deal. I'm okay with it. What we hear a lot is that we're dropping down kind of the fear level, like very simple empowerment, right? The second thing that we saw pretty universally was that teacher confidence went up. Teachers felt more confident now in how to keep their kids safe. And I share this because during the testing, we asked the question ahead of time, how safe or how confident do you feel in some violent situation? Something happened, how confident do you stay safe? And most teachers said, I felt somewhat confident. They had some training, they watched the video, they had law enforcement training, whatever it was. It was about 50% of teachers said they felt confident. When we asked the teachers, well, what about your students? What happens if you have your students with you? How confident do you feel? It went from 50% down to about 28%. Only a quarter of teachers really felt that they could keep their kids safe, their students safe if something had happened, which was shocking to us. Which means 75% of teachers felt that they were unable to keep their students safe, they didn't know how to. We re-asked the same question after the program, after they did the training, the lessons, and all things. we asked the same question. What teachers said was now 100% of teachers felt confident or highly confident by themselves. But the other very interesting thing we found is pretty much 100% of teachers said they also felt confident with their kiddos, right, with their students. And so we hear a lot from teachers, this just happen to be from high school teacher, but universally what we hear is that they are a stronger advocate for safety. And their own personal anxiety goes down around the topic once they kind of really understand what's happening. Right? And so to empower teachers to have substantive conversation with the right language and the right tools to talk to kiddos regardless of age has been a big thing for teachers as well. I say all this, we're in national conversations that we reach from Hawaii all the way to New York. We're in a lot of working groups. We partner with a lot of different both government organizations as well as school safety organizations across the country. We are the trainers of the U.S. Secret Service when it comes to all their family protection and the way in which family members, how they focus on family safety of agents. We do all their training. We sit on the National Board of FEMA when it comes to school safety. We work with a lot of very interesting folks along the way, a lot of academic partners. Teachers can actually earn professional development units through the University of Massachusetts for teaching the program, so it's academically based behind it. There's a lot of things around this, and I say this because we bring kind of the knowledge base and the reach to every single school. It's one phone call, one email, one text message. Hey, we're thinking about this. Hey, this happened. What are your thoughts? We can bring essentially the facts of what's happening from across the country, these working groups, to every single school and say, hey, here's what's going on. Let's make the best decision for your school or your community. So we have extremely large knowledge base of things that are school safety related to make really good decisions. That's all part of it. And so that's kind of really it, right? When we think about really the whole purpose behind any of the program or anything that we do, we want to be able to provide and empower teachers to make good decisions and the knowledge to stay safe. We want to empower and provide the knowledge to appropriate skills for your kids, for their students, but also for the community at large, for you, the parents, for everyone here. We should all be able to feel safe and be safe in our communities and at school where we go. And while we can't always control the environment, we can control our knowledge of how to stay safe and what to do if something goes wrong, if something doesn't feel right, if something happens beyond our control. How can we try to stay safe? Because from a school point of view, how many people grew up in California? Our California natives, right? If the ground was start to shake right now, what would we do? What we learned was duck and cover under a table. As Californians who've been here a while, we would probably guess the Richter to see how strong it is. We probably wouldn't do much until things start moving and falling. Didn't even get under a table or get outside. But we learned since this age what to do. We grew up. If you didn't grow up in California, you grew up in Tornado Alley, you grew up in the South, you grew up in different places, you learn how to stay safe from different natural disasters. We've been doing that for a very long time. Since the 50s, we have been leaving our classroom every month for the last 70 some odd years to stay safe and practice how to stay safe from fires. Unfortunately, we have evolved now in the world to the point that we got to add one more part to that safety component. And that last extra part is how do you stay safe from each other sometimes, from those violent events, from other people trying to do harm, maybe not to us, but maybe even an area that we're in, at a mall or a movie theater. How do we stay safe in those instances? I want to end the presentation. I'm going to open up for questions here in just a second, but I want to share an email I got last month. And this email came from one of our school principals. This school is located in Orange County, so just north of us. I get this email from this principal, and it says, hey, I just got this from a former student. I wanted to forward it to you. Thank you. And that was all the email said. And so this is taking the email out real to read, but as you read through it, this student had graduated middle school from this school 5 years ago. So she is 5 years removed from this program. She found herself in Dallas for a cheer competition, and things went terribly wrong. Some of you may either seen or heard parts of this on news. She was with a group of other younger girls with her. And as she starts to describe what's happening, she starts talking about remembering the things that she last talked about 5 years prior when she was still in middle school. And as this particular incident rolled out,
she talks about the fact that now that she's an adult, now that she's in a position of responsibility, and as she says, being one of the oldest kids in the room, gave her kind of an automatic leader, that had she not had some basic understanding of what to do, not to keep herself safe, keep her kids safe, for her, and in her perspective, where she was, this would have gone dramatically different for her and this kid now. And I share this because even for us, sometimes we forget the impact that we have on kids. Sometimes we forget just, yeah, yes, it's programming, yes, we're constantly refining it, yes, we're constantly doing things, yes, we're constantly getting better and better and better and better. But sometimes we actually forget. Every now and again, someone uses it, and it becomes from something I learned to something that is emotionally connected to them based upon what happened to them. And this story is representative of stories we have from teachers, and from students, and from mothers, and from fathers, and from grandparents, of things that happen in parks, and in restaurants, and in gas stations, on the way to school, on the way home from school. And so, as I kind of wrap the official presentation, open up for questions, let's think about what do we want to be able to do? What do we have to be able to know in order for us to go on and have just fun with our kids, fun with our families, send them to school and have confidence that they're going to come home maybe a little bit smarter, maybe a little bit more respectful, maybe a little bit more knowledgeable, and we left them. So that we know that we can take this safety thing and try to put it as one of those things that we kind of have to do, but it does not have to be the forefront of everybody's mind. So with that, I will answer, I will open up for any questions anyone may have, programming, stories, the state of school safety, whatever you'd like to ask, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes?
What if you don't have enough time to do anything?
She has a very good question. What if we don't have time? That's a very interesting thing, right? Because the more time we have, hopefully the better it's going to be, right? If we have more time, the better decisions we can make. We don't always have a lot of time. And so when you think about like the H.E.R.O concepts and those H.E.R.O things, one of the ways in which that we kind of teach it in a way that we start to kind of think about it is, hopefully I don't even have to think about it. I don't have to take the time to think about it. I want to just be able to react in a way that's fast, so that way I can create more time. What we see a lot in studying this kind of all over the place is that you might only have a few seconds. There might only be a few seconds for us to understand something's going wrong, whatever it may be, to make a good decision. And what we try to do is shrink down the amount of time to think about it so we can react fast to buy us a little bit extra time. If that's a really good question, we're trying to make you think faster so you get more time. And so we kind of give you more time. That's a really good question.
What about you're stuck in a fire?
Well, let's talk about fires. The nice thing is that we can almost always get away from fires now. We've learned how to do that, right? We got fire alarms and fire things and lights and all kinds of things. And luckily, we've made fire not quite so dangerous for us all. We make the way to stay pretty safe from that. That's what we practice every single month. That's a really good question. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I will hang out and hand the microphone back over here. I know we got raffles and drawings, all kinds of things, but I'll hang out afterwards. If you have questions, want to come up and ask directly, maybe you didn't want to share it from everybody, I'm here to answer. I will stay until the last questions answered. Thank you all so much, for obviously your engagement here tonight, but also for being amazing parents and for engaging and having a relatively tough conversation.